I never thought a children's ballet recital could turn into a battleground. But that night, as parents filed into the school auditorium, holding flowers and tiny glittery programs, my ex-husband walked in with his lawyer at his side, like they were preparing for trial instead of watching our 7-year-old daughter dance. And the moment I heard him whisper, loud enough for others to catch it, "We're documenting her being a bad mother," something in my chest tightened so sharply I almost couldn't breathe. My name is Harper Wells, and for the past 2 years, I've been learning how to rebuild myself after a divorce I didn't ask for and a custody fight I never wanted. I work full-time, raise my daughter, and try to keep our lives steady, even when my ex-husband seems determined to tear down everything I do. You would think a ballet recital, a sparkling, innocent children's performance, would be the one place safe from his need to win. You would be wrong. Ethan, my ex-husband, didn't walk in quietly or respectfully like a normal parent. No. He marched in wearing a smug grin, his arm around Aubrey, his new wife, who immediately raised her phone and started filming me like she was catching a fugitive. Behind them followed Matthew Graves, Ethan's attorney, a tall, polished man in his late 40s with a reputation for being brutal in the courtroom. Seeing him at my daughter's school felt like someone had opened the auditorium doors and dragged winter inside. Parents around me glanced over, whispering. Some recognized Matthew from news articles about high-profile custody battles. Others just sensed something was off. You don't bring a lawyer to a second-grade ballet show unless you're planning something. My mother, Caroline, sat beside me holding the flowers we'd picked for Lily. Pink roses, her favorite. Caroline has always been my safe place, my voice of reason, and the person who keeps reminding me that I'm not failing as a mother even when Ethan tries to convince everyone otherwise. She leaned toward me as Ethan sat 3 rows behind us and whispered with that protective tone only a mother can master. "Ignore him. Tonight is about Lily, not him." I nodded, but my heart was racing, because I knew Ethan. I knew the way he liked to set traps. I knew how he liked to look like the calm, concerned father while painting me as unstable or irresponsible. And I knew that if he had brought his lawyer here, he intended to turn this recital into some sort of performance for court, where every gesture, every word, every expression of mine was something they could twist. Then I saw Lily peek out from backstage. Her tiny ballet bun was slightly crooked, a few wisps of her blonde hair escaping. She wore her light pink costume, the one she'd been practicing in for weeks, and her little hands gripped the edge of the curtain as she searched the audience with wide, excited eyes. The moment she spotted me, her face lit up, and that alone almost brought me to tears. Because Lily, my sweet girl, is the only reason I keep pushing through the exhaustion, the legal bills, the constant fear of losing her. She deserves peace. She deserves love. She deserves to twirl across the stage without feeling like her parents are on opposite sides of a war. But the second she saw her father, and the lawyer, her smile faltered. It was slight, but I caught it. Her body stiffened, and she ducked back behind the curtain. My stomach dropped. Something was wrong. Lily wasn't usually afraid of her father. She loved him. She trusted him. But lately she'd been quieter, jumpy when her phone buzzed, overly obedient when Ethan spoke. And now, seeing her father with his lawyer at a children's recital, the pieces started shifting in uncomfortable ways. As the lights dimmed and the recital began, I tried to focus on the stage. I clapped, I smiled, I leaned forward to catch every moment of Lily's performance. But the whole time, I felt Ethan's eyes on me, felt Aubrey's phone pointed directly at my face, and heard Matthew's pen scratching on a notepad. Parents around them shifted uncomfortably, pretending not to notice but unable to ignore the tension that seemed to follow Ethan wherever he went. Then, right as the spotlight washed over Lily, I heard Ethan whisper to a couple seated beside him, "Just wait. You'll see how she acts. This will help in court." And that is where the story begins. Not with Lily's dance, not with the applause, but with that one moment where something inside me whispered, "This isn't about the recital. This is a setup." What I didn't know was that my 7-year-old daughter had a truth she'd been carrying for days, and before the night ended, she would walk up to the microphone and reveal something that would make Ethan's lawyer stand up and leave the building. Everything changed because of her, and none of us saw it coming. If you asked me a year ago what my life looked like, I would have told you it was finally settling into something close to normal. After the divorce, after the endless arguments, after the nights I cried while Lily slept in her tiny bed, clutching her stuffed swan, I thought the worst was behind us. I had a small but steady job at a dental office, a peaceful apartment filled with mismatched furniture my mother found at yard sales, and a routine that made Lily feel safe. I was finally breathing again. But what no one tells you is that when you share a child with a man who treats relationships like competitions, the war doesn't end when the marriage does. It just changes battlegrounds. That morning, before the recital, everything seemed hopeful. The sun was warm, Lily was humming one of her ballet songs while brushing her hair, and Caroline had stopped by with a breakfast bag from the little diner down the street. She brought pancakes shaped like stars, because she said every ballerina needed a star-themed breakfast on recital day. Lily giggled when my mom sprinkled powdered sugar on top and said, "You shine bright enough to blind them all tonight." I laughed and tried to keep the mood light, watching Lily twirl in the kitchen in her pajamas. For a moment, it felt like nothing could get in the way of her happiness. But then, Lily's tablet buzzed. She froze. Her eyes darted toward me, then toward my mother, and she hesitated before picking it up. I couldn't see the screen, but I saw the way her shoulders stiffened and how she bit her lip like she was holding something back. When I asked who it was, she quickly said, Daddy. He just said good luck. It sounded rehearsed. She set the tablet down gently, as if it were fragile, and immediately changed the subject, asking me to help with her ballet bun. My mother raised an eyebrow at me, sensing something was off, but we didn't push. We had all learned to choose the right moments to ask questions. By the time we arrived at the school auditorium, the lobby was buzzing with families greeting each other, little ballerinas adjusting their costumes, and parents taking photos under paper star decorations. It was the warm, chaotic energy that makes school events feel so inviting. I wanted to focus on that. I wanted to blend into the crowd and enjoy this moment for Lily. Caroline handed Lily the pink rose bouquet we'd picked out. "For the best dancer in the entire building," she announced. Lily beamed and hugged her tightly. We walked her backstage where she joined a group of giggling girls practicing their poses. She kissed my cheek and said, "Watch me, okay, Mommy." "Always," I told her. Then everything shifted. When I walked back into the auditorium, the first person I saw was Ethan. He stood in the aisle like he owned the place, wearing a smug smile that made my stomach churn. And beside him, I saw her, Aubrey, his new wife, dressed like she was attending a formal event rather than a children's recital. She held her phone high, already recording. But it was the man standing beside them who made my breath catch. Matthew Graves, his attorney, here. He wasn't just present, he was working. He had a notepad out, scanning the room like he was preparing jury instructions. Parents turned their heads. A few whispered to each other. This was not normal. This was not okay. I made my way to my seat, trying to keep my face neutral. Caroline noticed the tension immediately. "Why is he here with that man?" she muttered. "He said he was observing," I whispered back. My mother's jaw tightened. She has never been subtle about her feelings toward Ethan. "This is a recital," she snapped under her breath, "not a deposition." I tried to ground myself in the moment. The auditorium lights dimmed. Soft piano music began to play. Parents hushed their conversations as the first group of dancers tiptoed onto the stage. But every time I tried to relax, I felt someone watching me. Aubrey stood a few rows back, recording me like I was the entertainment. Ethan leaned in close to Matthew, whispering nonstop. Matthew scribbled notes every time I shifted in my seat. I wasn't imagining it. This wasn't paranoia. I was being watched, evaluated, assessed. Caroline reached over and squeezed my hand. "Focus on Lily," she said softly. "Only her." I tried. But when I saw Lily take the stage, her eyes searched the audience until she found me. Her expression flickered. Joy first, then something else. Something cautious. She saw the lawyer. She saw the phones. She saw her father's stern, expectant face. It was in that moment that dread began to pool in my stomach. Something was wrong. Something Lily hadn't told me. Something that would turn this recital from a sweet childhood memory into a moment none of us would ever forget. There's a moment every parent knows, the moment you realize your child is acting differently, but you can't quite place why. That was the feeling clawing at me as I watched Lily glide across the stage, her tiny ballet slippers brushing the floor like feathers. She danced beautifully, just like she had practiced for weeks, but there was something about the way her eyes kept flickering toward her father that unsettled me. While the other parents applauded with soft smiles, Ethan sat stiff and upright, his arms crossed tightly, watching Lily with an intensity that had nothing to do with pride. Aubrey stayed glued to her phone, zooming in and out, whispering things I couldn't hear. And then there was Matthew, stoic, expressionless, writing notes every time I clapped too enthusiastically or leaned forward to watch my daughter more closely. I felt like I was the one on stage, under a spotlight, being judged. During the first intermission, parents stepped into the hallway for snacks and photos. Children with glittery cheeks giggled as they sipped juice boxes. But the energy around me was different, tight, heavy. No matter where I moved, Ethan's presence followed. I tried to slip toward the hallway wall to avoid a confrontation, but Ethan intercepted me with a practiced ease, as if he had anticipated my every step. His smile was tight, rehearsed, the same one he wore in court. "Harper," he said, tilting his head with mock concern. "Matthew is here to observe your behavior. We've had concerns." I swallowed hard. Concerns about what? I'm at my daughter's recital. You're the one treating this like a trial. Aubrey stepped beside him, sliding her hand over his arm. "We're just documenting everything," she said, her tone sugary but hollow. "We want what's best for Lily." I could feel other parents watching us, pretending not to listen while leaning closer. Humiliation burned under my skin. Matthew approached with his notepad, nodding as if confirming something he'd already predicted about me. "Mrs. Wells," he said flatly, "I'm simply gathering information." My mother, Caroline, swooped in before I could respond. "Information? At a children's recital? What exactly do you think you'll find here? Unfit parenting or missed dance steps?" Matthew didn't answer. Ethan smirked. But then something happened that made my stomach twist even tighter. From the corner of my eye, I saw Lily standing halfway backstage, her hands clasped together, watching the interaction with wide, anxious eyes. Her posture was rigid, uncomfortable, afraid. She wasn't supposed to be seeing this. She wasn't supposed to be worrying about adults acting like children. I forced a smile and waved at her, mouthing, "It's okay." But it wasn't. Lily had never looked so small. During the second half of the recital, the tension only grew worse. Every time I applauded, Matthew scribbled something. When I leaned over to hand my mom her water bottle, Aubrey zoomed in as if catching something incriminating. When I whispered, "She's beautiful," to Caroline, Ethan muttered just loud enough, "So performative." Parents sitting behind them shifted uncomfortably. A few exchanged glances that silently asked, "What is wrong with these people?" When Lily came back on stage for her final performance, something inside me twisted. Her movements were still graceful, but her face lacked the carefree joy she usually radiated. She seemed distracted, torn between the music and the tension pulsing through the auditorium. At the end of her dance, as the music faded and applause erupted, Lily curtsied, then hesitated. She didn't run to join the other children. Instead, she scanned the room, her expression tightening when she saw Matthew still taking notes. Something had broken inside her. When the lights brightened and parents stood to applaud, Lily hurried backstage. I rushed to meet her, only to find her sitting on a small bench near the curtain, gripping her ballet bag with white knuckles. "Sweetheart." I knelt beside her. "What's wrong?" Her lower lip trembled. "Mom, I don't like tonight." I brushed a loose curl from her cheek. "Because Daddy brought his lawyer?" She didn't answer. She didn't have to. Then, in a voice barely above a whisper, she murmured, "Daddy told me something. Something for court. I don't want to say it. I don't want to lie." My breath froze in my lungs. Before I could ask more, Lily looked toward the stage door, the one leading to the microphone, and something hardened in her expression. Resolve, determination, fear mixed with bravery. "I need to say something," she whispered. The conflict wasn't just between Ethan and me anymore. It wasn't about the lawyer or the cameras. It wasn't even about custody. This was about Lily and the truth she'd been carrying alone, a truth her father had forced on her, a truth she was about to reveal in front of everyone. When the final applause faded and the stage lights dimmed, families began rising from their seats, smiling, gathering flowers, hurrying to congratulate their little dancers. Laughter and excitement filled the auditorium. Everyone seemed to be celebrating something pure and joyful. Everyone except my daughter. Where other kids ran into their parents' arms, thrilled with their performance, Lily stayed near the backstage door, her ballet slippers still tied tight, her pink costume shimmering under the dim lights. But her face, her small, sweet face, was pale. She held her ballet bag tightly against her stomach as if anchoring herself. I pushed through clusters of parents, ignoring the forced smile Ethan flashed when he saw me coming. He whispered something to Matthew, who scribbled another note. All I cared about was Lily. I reached her and knelt down. "Baby, you were incredible," I whispered. "You danced beautifully." She forced a tiny smile, but her eyes were glassy, unfocused. "Mom," she said softly, "can we go home soon?" Before I could answer, I heard my mother behind me. "Sweetheart, what's wrong? You should be proud." Lily swallowed hard, glanced over my shoulder at her father, and quietly whispered, "Daddy told me something for court. He told me to say you yell at me all the time. But you don't. You don't yell." My breath caught. My arms instinctively wrapped around her. So that was it. That was the weight she'd been carrying. The reason she'd been pulling away. The reason she kept checking her tablet like it would bite her. I pressed my forehead to hers. "You don't have to say anything that isn't true, sweetheart." She nodded, but her voice trembled. "Daddy said the judge will listen to me if I say it right. He said adults believe kids, but I don't want to lie. It feels wrong." My heart broke, shattered, at the idea of my child being weaponized. But before I could reassure her, Ethan's voice cut through the air like a command. "Lily, come here. We need to talk before we leave." He approached quickly, Aubrey recording again, Matthew trailing behind with his notepad tucked under his arm. Instinctively, I stood and positioned myself between them and Lily. "Stop," I said. "You don't get to coach her anymore." Ethan scoffed. "I'm parenting my child, something you should learn to do correctly." Caroline stepped forward too, her voice sharp. "You coached her to lie in court? That's parenting to you?" Aubrey's phone lowered a few inches, uncertainty flickering in her expression. Matthew shifted uncomfortably, his eyes narrowing as if evaluating a situation that suddenly felt legally dangerous. Lily tugged my sleeve. Her voice was barely a whisper. "Mom, I think I need to say something, out loud." I leaned down. "Sweetheart, you don't need to say anything you're not comfortable with." But she shook her head. Not afraid, not hesitant, determined. There was something fierce in her tiny voice when she said, "People need to know the truth. Daddy keeps lying. I can't fix things if I stay quiet." For a 7-year-old to say that, to understand that, felt like both miracle and heartbreak. Before I could stop her, Lily stepped out from behind me. She walked toward the center of the auditorium, where a microphone still stood on its black stand, left over from the recital's opening announcements. The spotlight wasn't on, but a soft overhead light illuminated her small frame. Parents began noticing her. One by one, conversations quieted. People turned, heads lifted, murmurs died out. A single child walking toward a microphone in a silent auditorium draws attention like nothing else. Ethan's eyes widened, his face drained of color. "Lily, don't touch that. Come here." She ignored him. Aubrey lowered her phone completely, frozen. Matthew's expression tightened into something unreadable. Concern, calculation, fear. I started to move toward Lily, but Caroline grabbed my arm gently. "Let her," she whispered. "She knows what she's doing." I didn't know if that was true. I didn't know if any of us were ready for what Lily wanted to say, but I knew she was tired of secrets, and she was choosing courage. Lily reached the microphone, her hands trembling. She tapped it softly. The faint sound echoed through the auditorium. Everyone turned. My daughter, my little ballerina, took a shaky breath, glanced briefly at me, then at the lawyer, and straightened her shoulders. For the first time all night, Ethan seemed genuinely afraid. This was the moment everything would change. This was the turning point, not created by lawyers, judges, or adults fighting for control, but by a child choosing truth, by a child refusing to be used, by my daughter choosing her own voice, and none of us could stop what was coming next. The auditorium fell into a strange, heavy silence as Lily's small fingers wrapped around the microphone. The soft static hum filled the room. Parents who had been gathering their bags froze mid-motion. The principal stepped out from the wings, confused. A few kids in sparkly leotards peeked out from backstage, sensing something unusual. Lily stood alone under the warm, overhead light, her pink ballet costume shimmering like she was still mid-performance. But this wasn't part of the recital. This wasn't rehearsed. This was something she chose, something she needed. I held my breath. Then her tiny voice echoed through the speakers, fragile, trembling, but unbelievably brave. "Thank you all for coming to my recital." A gentle ripple of smiles spread across the audience. Her tone had the sweetness they expected from a 7-year-old, but then she continued, "And thank you especially to my dad's lawyer." The ripple of smiles died instantly. Gasps. Confused murmurs. Matthew Graves, one of the toughest custody lawyers in the region, sat perfectly still, his hand frozen on his notepad. Lily looked directly at him. "I have something I need to ask you," she said. She paused, gathering courage. Her chin trembled, but she didn't falter. I felt my knees weakening. Caroline reached for my hand again, squeezing tightly. Lily swallowed and spoke into the microphone with a clarity no child her age should have to muster. "My daddy sent me texts. He told me what to say in court. He told me to say Mommy yells a lot and hurts my feelings, but that's not true." A wave of sharp inhalations echoed through the room. Shock, disbelief, outrage. My heart cracked open. Ethan shot to his feet. "Lily, stop! Get down from there!" People turned to look at him, their expressions shifting from confusion to suspicion. But Lily continued, voice louder this time. "Daddy told me I had to tell the judge that Mommy is mean when she's not. Mommy doesn't yell. She doesn't hurt me. She makes pancakes with stars and helps with my hair and reads stories when I can't sleep." I felt tears burn behind my eyes. The principal took a cautious step toward the stage, but something about Lily's determination stopped him in his tracks. Aubrey lowered her phone completely. For the first time that night, she looked genuinely horrified, not at me, but at Ethan. Lily's hands tightened around the microphone. "I didn't want to lie. Daddy said if I didn't say it, he would be sad. But I feel sad when I lie, and I don't want to lie anymore." She slowly turned her gaze back to Matthew. "So, I want to ask Daddy's lawyer something. Is it okay for a parent to make a kid lie in court?" It was the kind of question that slices clean through silence. Matthew's jaw tightened. He stood abruptly, not with authority, but with sudden panic. He grabbed his briefcase and walked straight down the aisle toward the exit without answering a single word. No goodbye, no explanation, just escape. Dozens of eyes followed him, Ethan's face drained of color. Aubrey took a step away from Ethan as if she didn't want to be associated with whatever was unfolding. But Lily wasn't finished. She turned toward her father. "Daddy, I don't want to lie about Mommy. I don't want to be part of your fight anymore. I just want things to be peaceful." Ethan rushed forward. "Lily, get off the stage!" The principal blocked him with a firm, protective arm. "Sir, you need to sit down, now!" Parents started murmuring with disgust. Someone whispered loudly enough for others to hear, "He tried to force his kid to lie?" Another voice added, "That's emotional abuse." Ethan froze, realizing the tide had turned, not in his favor, not even close. Meanwhile, Lily's breath hitched, her confidence wavering now that everything was spilling out. I stepped forward, heart pounding, and the principal gestured for me to go to her. I climbed onto the stage as Lily's shoulders shook. She dropped the microphone and ran into my arms, sobbing against my chest. I held her tightly, pressing my cheek to her hair. "You did nothing wrong," I whispered. "You were so brave. I'm proud of you. I'm here. It's over." But in many ways, it was just beginning, for Ethan. The principal spoke up, addressing the audience. "We will be documenting this incident for the proper authorities." Ethan looked around desperately, cornered by his own actions. Aubrey refused to meet his eyes. Parents stared with disgust and pity. Matthew was already gone, probably realizing he wanted no part in what had just been exposed. Lily clung to me, whispering, "I didn't want to lie anymore, Mommy." I kissed her forehead. "You told the truth, and that changes everything." And it did. In one unplanned, courageous moment, My daughter tore down the entire narrative Ethan had spent months building. The courtroom wouldn't be the same. The custody case wouldn't be the same. Our lives wouldn't be the same. My little ballerina, my quiet, gentle Lily, had brought the truth into the light, and nothing, not even her father's manipulation, could put it back in the dark. The drive home after the recital felt unreal. Lily fell asleep in the back seat, still wearing her ballet costume, clutching her stuffed swan against her chest. Her little face, streaked with dried tears and glitter makeup, looked so fragile and exhausted that I kept checking the rearview mirror just to make sure she was okay. Each time I looked, a new wave of protectiveness washed over me. As soon as we pulled into the driveway, my mother gently touched my arm. "You go carry her. I'll bring the flowers." I nodded and lifted Lily out of the car. She stirred but didn't wake, her arms tightening instinctively around my neck. I held her like I used to when she was a baby, close, safe, tucked under my chin. Inside the warm glow of our living room, I sat on the couch with her still in my arms, her breathing soft and steady. Caroline draped a blanket over us, brushing Lily's hair back with trembling fingers. For a long time, none of us spoke. The weight of what had happened didn't hit all at once. It settled slowly, like dust after an explosion. We were safe now, but everything had changed. Lines had been crossed that couldn't be undone. Eventually, my mother broke the silence. "Harper, you know what you have to do." I nodded. "I know." That night, after I tucked Lily into bed and kissed her forehead, I sat at the dining table with my laptop and the small pink tablet Lily had shown me earlier. My hands shook as I opened the messages. There they were, dozens of texts, instructional, manipulative. Ethan telling our daughter what to say, how to say it, why she needed to help Daddy look good in court. Each message felt like a punch to the chest, not just because he tried to manipulate Lily, but because he didn't care that he was putting her in the middle of his war. The rage I felt wasn't loud. It was cold, steady, focused. By morning, I had everything compiled, a copy of the texts, a written summary of what happened, names of witnesses, and an official email drafted to my attorney, Marla Jennings, a calm but fierce woman who specialized in family court cases. The subject line read, "Urgent, evidence of parental manipulation." Within an hour of sending it, Marla called me. Her voice was sharper than usual. "Harper, I'm so sorry this happened, but I want you to know Lily speaking up changes everything. This is serious, and the court will not take it lightly." I explained the entire recital incident, the lawyer, the recording, the confrontation, the microphone, the audience reaction. Marla listened carefully, occasionally making an angry sound under her breath. "You did everything right," she said. "I'm filing an emergency motion today. Ethan's behavior crosses multiple legal lines: coercion, emotional manipulation, witness tampering, involving a child in litigation. Judges do not tolerate this." For the first time in a long time, I felt something I hadn't felt since long before the divorce. Control. A path forward. A chance to protect my daughter not just emotionally, but legally. Later that day, Marla updated me again. The judge granted a temporary restriction on Ethan's direct communication with Lily. He was now required to only message her through a monitored parenting app, and any in-person interactions had to be supervised until further review. Aubrey didn't try to defend him. In fact, she didn't contact us at all. From what I later heard, even she was shaken by how far Ethan had gone. She hadn't known about the texts. She hadn't understood the pressure he put on Lily. And for the first time, I saw her less as an enemy and more as someone trapped behind Ethan's charm and control, just like I once was. When I told Lily about the new boundaries, she let out a long breath, longer than any breath I'd heard from her before. "So he can't make me say things anymore?" she asked. I knelt down and took her hands. "No, sweetheart. You never have to lie for anyone. Not ever." Her eyes filled with relief. "I don't want to be in the middle anymore." "You won't be," I promised. "I'm going to make sure of that." As days passed, the tension in our home began to lift. Lily started sleeping better. She laughed more. She asked to practice her ballet routines in the living room again. The spark that had dimmed in her began flickering back to life. And for me, every moment of her healing reaffirmed something I had forgotten in the chaos. I am a good mother. I am her safe place, and she is stronger than anyone ever realized. One night, while tucking her in, Lily whispered, "Mommy, I think telling the truth made my heart lighter." I brushed her hair back and smiled. That's what truth does, baby. It frees you. As I turned out the light, I knew this chapter, this painful, exhausting chapter, was closing, and the next one would be built on honesty, safety, and peace. Lily had spoken her truth, and in doing so, she shattered Ethan's lies. She protected both of us. The truth didn't just change the courtroom, it changed our lives. As I look back on that night, I realized something important. Sometimes the bravest person in the room isn't the adult with the loudest voice or the lawyer with the thickest briefcase. Sometimes it's a child, the one everyone underestimated, who steps forward and tells the truth the world needs to hear. Lily didn't just change our custody case that night. She changed our lives. She taught me that courage doesn't always roar. Sometimes it speaks quietly into a microphone, wearing a pink ballet costume and trembling just a little. And if you're going through something similar, if you're fighting to protect your child, if you're standing up for yourself even when the odds feel stacked against you, I hope Lily's story reminds you that truth has power, that even when people try to twist things, even when you feel overwhelmed or scared, the truth finds its way to the surface. And when it does, it can set everything right. Thank you so much for watching this story. If it moved you, inspired you, or kept you listening all the way to the end, please like the video, share it, comment on it, and subscribe to the channel for more stories just like this. Your support means the world. I'll see you in the next video.